Tae-soo muttered curses at Ji-hyung, that damned kid. Tae-soo wonders if Ji-hyung is fighting with Lucas. Han Tae-soo cursed madly, damn it. Standing amidst the dark, radioactive gloom with this massive northern monster, Han Tae-soo talked to himself like a madman. In this dark, bloody gate, only the dark shadow of Lucas and the anomalous skeleton, Ji-hyung, remained. Ji-hyung went on the defensive. He was helpless but couldn't harm Lucas, the man he respected. Lucas instinctively recoiled. This manna was truly ominous. Lucas hugged Ji-hyung tightly, wondering how much pain he must be in. Black blood flowed from Lucas's eyes, as if deeply empathizing with Ji-hyung. One of Ji-hyung's eyes still sensed the deep emotions within him. From Ji-hyung's massive hand, a sharp blade sprouted. Ji-hyung created a powerful mana circle around himself. Lucas's voice echoed, sometimes, just having someone listen could help tremendously. Lucas spread his wings, which grew from his arms like angel wings. Therefore, I shall be the ears that listen to everything. Lucas's hand reached towards Ji-hyung's ears. Lucas placed his hand deep inside Ji-hyung's brain. Changes were gradually occurring within his body. Lucas's hand was gone, now it resided deep within Ji-hyung's brain. Intense streams of mana flowed around Ji-hyung. Lucas gradually perceived sounds within himself. Ji-hyung's brain seemed to burst where Lucas had placed his hand. Lucas placed his armless hand on his heart. After gaining these abilities, I continuously hear sounds. The cries of those suffering, enduring hunger, illness, or other misfortunes. The agonizing screams of pain from those begging for salvation. Lucas focused his mind. Thankfully, I also hear other sounds. The prayers of children before God, carrying hope, support, and happiness. The echoes of gratitude, the prayers of those who were saved. Lucas knelt, extending his arms in the posture of someone deeply grateful for the blessings of the Creator. Lucas's massive hand reached out, as if trying to grasp Ji-hyung. His hands clenched. Ji-hyung was inside. Even now, I can hear it. Lucas's hand crushed, black blood spurted out. Ji-hyung must have shattered. Even if he had to do this for humanity, Lucas was in great pain. Black tears streamed down his face. But strangely, mana kept pouring out from Lucas's hand. In Lucas' giant hands, Ji-hyung's body gradually recovered as if it had never been crushed. Lucas's hands felt like they were about to explode. Bloody black blood. Ji-hyung's eyes blazed, and his pupils dilated. Ji-hyung pointed his sharp bone at Lucas, who knelt before him. Small hands sprouted from Lucas's massive hand, still grasping Ji-hyung, pulling him back. Ji-hyung struggled fiercely to break free. Ji-hyung fully recovered and stood before Lucas, reaching out to strangle him. Lucas was helpless. He had to resort to violence against Ji-hyung. Was this truly the only way? When Lucas's hand touched Ji-hyung's forehead, it left a cross-shaped mark. The cross indented deeply, causing Ji-hyung to clutch his head with both hands. Ji-hyung's body was gradually being destroyed. Sometimes, faith tests us. Blood erupted, splattering Lucas's face. His eyes showed profound sadness. Unpleasant sounds began to appear around Ji-hyung. It caused blood to flow profusely from Ji-hyung's face, eyes, nose, and all over his body. Lucas's face was also stained with Ji-hyung's blood. Lucas put a finger on his tongue. I let out different sounds from Lucas's mouth to mock Ji-hyung. Ji-hyung is screaming in pain. Ji-hyung half opens her eyes and vaguely sees everything around her. Ji-hyung poked his skeleton eye and he had to ask himself, what am I doing? Only Ji-hyung's inner screams remained. The pain was unbearable, excruciating. Strange things kept happening. Should be terrified of him, but I feel no fear. Despite being covered in blood, Ji-hyung felt strangely warm standing before Lucas. Ji-hyung's body screamed in pain, a heartbreaking sound. There were people praying to God for peace and safety. Ji-hyung wondered, what is that? Is it respect, faith? Thousands of crosses appeared before Ji-hyung's eyes. What in the world? When Ji-hyung realized he had no escape, it was too late. That damned Lucas. When Lucas and everyone else said amen in unison, Ji-hyung's body seemed to vanish completely. Everyone wept, fervently praying to God. On Han Tae-soo's side, he laughed loudly, a harsh, unsettling sound. What angered him was that even the Arctic monster was nothing compared to that damned American. If I can't kill this thing, I can't kill him either. Enraged, Han Tae-soo smashed a boulder in two. Ji-hyung, I will kill you myself. Meanwhile, Lucas clutched his head in agony, having killed Jihyung with his own hands, leaving him a pool of blood on the cold ground. But soon, mana surged powerfully around Jihyung's blood. Jihyung was almost completely demonized, beyond control, and attacked. Without looking, Lucas unleashed a full-powered punch at Jihyung. The immense force caused the high-rise building to explode in seconds. Jihyung's hand lay limp on the ground. Suddenly, a woman appeared before Jihyung's body, crushed under the rubble. It was Jihyung's mother. With gentle sorrow, she softly called out to her son, fearfully and hesitantly approaching. The mother gazed in surprise at Jihyung lying face up in a pool of blood, her voice faltering, "My son." Moved, Jihyung shed a tear. Jihyung, in a weak voice, whispered, "Mom." Jihyung silently called out, "Mom." His mother was too shocked to speak. She flashed back to a moment in the past when she dropped a tray of food while bringing it to her son's room. The terrified mother asked, "Son?" Jihyung cried and trembled. Jihyung grasped his remaining arm, hesitating. "I think, I've awakened." A bony protrusion on his wrist was visible. The pitiful Jihyung whispered, "Mom." Jihyung hugged his mother tightly, crying uncontrollably, "I'll become a hunter." Jihyung bit his lower lip, "I'll become a hunter." Still hugging his mother, Jihyung continued, promising her a life of wealth. His mother, drenched in sweat, was filled with fear. Jihyung then laughed loudly, reaching out to his mother. The mother quickly turned and fled, ignoring Jihyung's screams. Jihyung cried out in despair, "Mom, it's me, your son." Jihyung grabbed her wrist, his sharp fingernails drew blood. The mother fell and hit her face. Tiso fell to the ground. Jihyung silently asked if it was because of these things. "Mother." The soaked mother sat up, turning to look at Jihyung, stammering, "No, not this." Jihyung began to mutilate himself. "It's not me." The mother slapped him hard across the face and screamed, "Get away from me." Jihyung, resentful, gritted his teeth, tears streaming down his face. Lucas looked around Taesung and then spoke, "The story you told about your mother." Lucas silently wondered, was it all a lie? Jihyung continued to call out, "Mom, Mom." Enraged, Lucas charged, book in hand, ready to attack the pathetic creature. Lucas immediately had his head cut off by Jihyung. Lucas' head immediately splashed into the water below. Jihyung continued to call, "Mom, Mom." At this time, the parasitic soul inside Lucas' body escaped. Jihyung hugged her mother, her voice filled with despair. Jihyung continued, "Mom." Suddenly, the parasitic spirit entered Jihyung's mouth. Jihyung fell silent. The parasitic spirit successfully took over Jihyung's body. Jihyung's expression changed. A joyful girl appeared, saying she loved this body. The person possessing Jihyung was a girl with limp purple hair and earrings, thinking to herself, "I like strong men." Inside, the purple-haired girl was silently expressing her feelings, "I hate weaklings." Behind her were a bunch of male corpses hanging like decorations, men she had killed because they couldn't tolerate her childishness. Therefore, the purple-haired girl was immersed in her love for Lucas, whispering, "I love you, Lucas." The purple-haired girl was madly in love, whispering, "I love you." She stuck out her tongue and licked the picture lustfully, whispering, "I want to become one with you." The girl continued her reminiscing. Some time later, when I awakened my abilities, the girl who had possessed Lucas. The girl, one with Lucas's body, I gained a new skill, the ability to merge with others. Right now, the purple-haired girl was basking in a feeling of euphoria. With it, I always get what I want. A man stronger than Lucas, the girl was overjoyed, perfect. The purple-haired girl was inside her mind, watching all the memories. The girl slowly followed Jihyung's past, this man's memories. Jihyung woke up but didn't see her mother beside her. Jihyung stepped out of the room and saw her mother turning away, walking away. Jihyung yelled, "Mom." Her mother ran quickly. Jihyung chased after her, shouting, "Mom." Unfortunately, she tripped and fell. Jihyung was bleeding profusely and screamed. Her mother stopped, biting her lip. Then, her mother continued running, ignoring Jihyung's screams. The rain grew heavier. Jihyung slowly walked in the rain, exhausted and unsteady. She fell to the ground, suffering. "Mom, don't abandon me," she cried. Jihyung silently blamed herself. "I'm your son, Mom, please come back and stay with me. Why did you leave me?" Jihyung wondered, is it because Dad died because of me? Jihyung looked at her blood-stained wrist. Or is it because my abilities are dirty? Jihyung blamed herself. Am I a monster? Jihyung, her face full of hatred, sat up. Jihyung cut at the anomalous bone on her wrist. But it kept growing, making Jihyung furious. Jihyung fell into despair and screamed. Jihyung's tears and snot flowed freely. Jihyung bit her lip. Her hand held a glass bottle, as if she were about to do something. Jihyung repeatedly cut her wrist forcefully. Suddenly, she heard a voice. The voice grew closer. Jihyung's mother ran to her son. Jihyung hesitantly called out, "Mom." The pitiful Jihyung said, "I was wrong, Mom, I'm sorry, but..." Jihyung's eyes were blank. This thing can't be removed, it keeps growing, what should I do? Her mother, panicked, couldn't hold back her tears. Jihyung kept saying, "What should I do, I'm sorry." The rain stopped, her mother hugged her son tightly. "I'm sorry, my son, I'm so sorry." The mother silently blamed herself. The purple-haired girl, after seeing the memories, laughed loudly. Haha. The purple-haired girl thought to herself that this guy is really a crazy bastard. The purple-haired girl was filled with a feeling of excitement. I love it, I can control this body freely. The purple-haired girl controlled the entire body. The girl skipped and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. Then she immersed herself in every cell. The girl suddenly screamed in pain. The purple-haired girl writhed in agony. This hurts so much. The girl felt the exoskeleton piercing her intestines, her muscles twisting, and her bowels being torn apart. The girl cursed silently, but damn it, it kept regenerating. The girl was in agony every second. It hurt so much. She hesitated, thinking, he goes through this every second, the image of the girl inside the body. Jihyung, with a sliver of consciousness, yelled, "Get out of me, you son of a bitch." Jihyung fell backward. At that moment, the parasite inside Jihyung was violently ejected. The purple-haired girl sat up in the puddle of water below. Wait. The girl panicked, only managing a C, before Jihyung instantly ended her. The girl's severed body lay in a pool of blood. Jihyung cried out, "Mom." On the side of Lucas's corpse. Suddenly, a blinding light appeared. Stephen Lucas stood before everyone and announced, "Everyone, leave now. Use the doors quickly, the believers must escape first." The brown-haired man beside him said anxiously, "Father, you must evacuate too." The green dragon soared. The man behind him said urgently, "Father, hurry." Suddenly, a beam of light flashed, piercing through the dragons and reaching Stephen. Stephen's eyes widened. He seemed to suddenly remember terrifying memories from the past, the moment Jihyung was lifted, his lifeless eyes, and the terrifying faces of the demons. Catastrophes, tragedies, being used as a test subject, flying into space and dying, traveling to other worlds, those horrific things appeared, a vast universe with countless galaxies, its immensity beyond human comprehension. Stephen looked at it, tears streaming down his face, rolling like a river. Under the radiant light, Stephen knelt, as if experiencing enlightenment. Suddenly, a foot stepped forward. He looked at Stephen kneeling on the ground, thinking, "This is the person's will, isn't it?" From Stephen's mouth, something strange emerged. It crawled out, and Stephen's eyes were as white as a corpse's. Stephen, with his naked body, raised his head and looked at the sky. Tiso's eyes appeared as if his heart was covered in magic, his body was full of strange characters. Stephen looked toward the column of light. If this is truly, he looked up in a strange posture, the person's will, on these soft hairs. Stephen stood motionless, gazing at the light beam from the sky, seemingly a small grain of sand amidst the downy hairs. Stephen clasped his hands, so happy he was about to cry. "Then I will gladly accept it." Elsewhere, Stephen lay in a pool of blood, his head severed, his eyes wide open in a look of terror. Suddenly, a strange light appeared at his neck, it seemed to be healing him. Stephen was resurrected. He sat up, wings appearing on his back. Jihyung, in white armor, looked at him with a mixture of astonishment and a desire for annihilation. Stephen was resurrected, his entire body radiated an unusually warm light, his wounds completely healed without a trace. Stephen closed his eyes, his face expressing gratitude, as if about to cry, "Oh, God." He stood before Jihyung. "I will wholeheartedly accept the trials you have bestowed." Jihyung looked at him, confused, what the hell is going on? Stephen ran and embraced him, holding him tightly, only to be cursed, "Fuck you. But the stones on the armor began to fall. Stephen wondered why such an innocent child had to endure such horrific trials. Ji-hyun was completely astonished, his body also naked. He was surprised. Suddenly, a red creature soared into the air. A giant red monster emerged from the earth, its enormous mouth gaping, as if about to swallow them both. Suddenly, a beam of light sliced the monster in two. Beams of light from the sky cut the giant monster in half, the light slicing across the sky. Ji-hyun's face was filled with shock. He looked at the horrifying scene before him. The entire city was in chaos, surrounded by giant monsters, the sky red with strange beams of light. From different dimensions, other monsters emerged from strange holes beneath the beams of light. Ji-hyun was lifted, his eyes forced open to witness the chaos. Stephen gently placed him on the rooftop of a tall building. Then he flew high into the sky and returned with a bright light in the sky. Ji-hyun looked up after him. His eyes were indifferent without any emotion. Suddenly a golden light appeared. Stephen's eyes suddenly became strange, his wings opened wide. Stephen, in golden armor, raised a huge sword. He rode a golden steed with majesty and power. The creatures below cheered. More beams of light appeared in the sky. Numerous knights soared into the sky, clad in golden armor and riding golden steeds. Like him, they fought in unison, charging towards the monsters. The dark, gloomy sky began to clear, leaving behind rays of light. The chaos in the city was slowly receding. The warriors in golden armor and on golden steeds, with courageous spirits, charged into battle, defeating the monsters rising from the earth. Ji-hyun, naked, sat on the ground, his face blankly watching them. More beams of light appeared, many places on earth were being saved, the dark clouds dissipated, and light once again shone on the land where humans lived. They rejoiced, many shedding tears, others felt immense gratitude. The orange-haired man was gradually destroying the barrier surrounding him. His eyes widened, taking in everything. The blond boy cried, his hands clasped in prayer, his heart filled with boundless gratitude. At the church, Stephen and the boy stood before the door. The boy suddenly asked, "Father." He tugged at his sleeve, "Don't go, pray today." Stephen looked at the boy, not understanding. He replied, "Son." The boy's eyes suddenly turned gold, tears streaming down his face. He pleaded desperately with his father. Stephen looked sadly at his son. He couldn't decide what to do. He didn't turn back to hug the boy. Parents eventually have to leave their children. And when that time comes, the child must stand on their own. "Son," Stephen cried, tears streaming down his face. Elsewhere, Stephen suddenly appeared in the sky. He descended and said to Ji-hyun, "A heavy fate awaits you." He looked at him kneeling on the ground. "You will face more pain and suffering than you can imagine. It's terrible." Something mysterious was about to happen in the spatial rifts. More monsters, more cruel ones, appeared. Stephen clasped his hands together, tears streamed down his face, but he smiled happily. He prayed earnestly, "But please, don't lose your faith until the very end." And so, Stephen disappeared with a happy smile. "Ah, I've cried so much until now." At the hospital, a voice cried out, "Mother." A patient lay in bed, her face gaunt, her body frail. Stephen and the blond boy knelt beside the bed, sobbing, "Mother." Stephen placed his hand on her, she grasped his tightly. The mother, with a weary face, forced a smile. Stephen remembered that moment. Tears welled up in his eyes, not from regret, but because of the moment they were facing. The blond boy also cried. The dark clouds were dissipating, the sky was brightening. The boy looked up at the sky, full of hope. Normal life had returned. "Goodbye, father." Suddenly, a savage laugh erupted. From his ravaged body, he cursed, "Damn it." Haha, he laughed maniacally. Strange threads surrounded him. The magical space suddenly appeared, a blue color covering him. He sat on it and laughed loudly, thinking he was dead. Tae-soo was in a protective membrane and floating in mid-air after a battle. Tae-soo laughed angrily and said he almost died, then he laughed continuously without stopping. While laughing, he controlled his own superpowers to create a rain of sharp diamond spikes flying from the sky straight towards the green monster that injured him. Tae-soo kept laughing in madness. Tae-soo, safely within the barrier, frantically used his powers. The sharp diamond thorns shot down at the speed of light from multiple directions, piercing the green monster's body. The monster was riddled with holes and blood, and Tae-soo continued laughing madly. In the midst of his laughter, he suddenly stopped. Tae-soo seemed to be thinking about something, lost in thought. Tae-soo thought back to his childhood, when he stood beside his father, innocently. He asked, "Father, do you have to do this?" His father, hearing this, looked down at Tae-soo with a strange, monstrous look. Tae-soo's father bent down, put his hand on Tae-soo's head, and stroked it. "Tae-soo," he said, "the stronger the gang becomes, the stronger you must become. It's all for your own good." Tae-soo hesitated, about to ask more, but his father yelled, "Do it." Seeing Tae-soo's resistance, his father put a chain around his neck. Tae-soo was surprised and looked up questioningly. Tae-soo's father, with a cruel expression, grabbed the chain, glaring menacingly. "Do it, you damned brat," he roared. Under his father's threats, Tae-soo struggled but couldn't escape, screaming in despair. His unhappy childhood, his father's personality and actions, had shaped him into the cruel person he was now. Under his cruel father's control, Tae-soo summoned diamond thorns, pointing them forward, resentfully pleading, "Please, don't." Yet, Tae-soo's father had prepared live people for training. A row of innocent people were pinned to the wall, forced to train. Tae-soo created sharp thorns, directing them at those pinned to the wall, pleading, "Don't die." Returning to reality, Tae-soo fell into deep contemplation. Still sitting inside the membrane, reminiscing, he helplessly exclaimed, "Damn it. The planet in the middle of the galaxy belt in the night sky clearly reveals bright, colorful stars." Someone announced, "Lucas has arrived, he's here." Rosanna was watching Tae-soo's battle on a screen, and he had won against the blue monster. Tae-soo entered the castle with an overwhelming presence. She continued, "Impressive." Rosanna, seated on a chair, solemnly addressed Tae-soo, "As promised, half of the Arctic Beast's magic stone," but as soon as Rosanna spoke, Tae-soo replied, "I ate it all." Rosanna, angered, sharply asked, "What?" Standing on the red carpet, Tae-soo, stroking his hair, said, "I absorbed the entire magic stone." Rosanna exclaimed in disbelief, "Impossible." Rosanna continued, "Your body can't handle it," but before she finished, Tae-soo lunged at her, hand outstretched to kill her. Rosanna, however, didn't dodge. Remaining seated with an annoyed expression, she gently raised and lowered her hand, then asked, "Why?" Tae-soo, crushed by the pressure of her aura, was slammed to the floor, the ground shattering into pieces. Rosanna pressed, "Why did you do that?" Tae-soo, lying on the ground, said, "There's someone I desperately want to kill." Then, Tae-soo created a clone of himself, appearing from behind Rosanna's chair, seemingly phasing through it, and extending a hand towards her, saying, "Can you die?" Rosanna clenched her fists, enraged by Tae-soo's reckless actions. A tense aura filled the room, becoming increasingly oppressive. Rosanna struck the clone Tae-soo behind her. The real battle was about to begin. The clone's blood splattered after taking her blow. She continued, "With that magic stone, all Russian hunters could become 10 times stronger." Rosanna slammed her hand on the chair, expressing her frustration and anger, "And you ate it all because of that." Tae-soo struggled to his feet and crawled towards her. She looked down. Rosanna removed her hat, revealing a face scarred with ugly marks. Placing her hand on her chest, she said, "Don't you care about Russia?" Yet, Tae-soo ignored her, continuously creating clones of himself, surrounding the room and her. Numerous clones of Tae-soo, each a different color and in a different pose, lunged towards her. Rosanna, with a mere thought, instantly obliterated the clones into hundreds of pieces, blood splattering across the room. Tae-soo remained on the ground, looking up at her. The orange-haired girl crouched on the ground in fear, covering her face, trembling before the two's incredible power. Tae-soo reached towards the orange-haired girl, a beam of light connected them. Rosanna said, "All right, then." In an instant, Tae-soo used his newly acquired power to teleport the orange-haired girl to his spot and himself to hers. At that very moment, Rosanna attacked, coldly saying, "Die," and unleashing her energy towards him. But Tae-soo's position was now occupied by his close companion. Her attack was already underway and couldn't be stopped. The orange-haired girl looked up, bewildered. Yet, Tae-soo's clones created a protective barrier, withstanding a large rock falling from the sky. Tae-soo laughed, creating even more clones. His face began to distort. A multitude of Tae-soo clones were created, laughing maniacally, each with a terrifying, murderous expression. She didn't stop, continuing her assault. A green Tae-soo clone leaped high into the air. One deformed itself into a new Tae-soo clone. they all possess different strengths. Tae-soo reflected on his past, the times he had to run and hide. Another Tae-soo clone appeared, surrounded by red energy. A swarm of clones jumped, reminiscent of his past battles, against the blue monster with his small protective barrier, using his abilities to pierce through many people with diamonds, his fights with the devil, his battles with a staff, and the times he used his abilities to kill. All these clones represented him at different moments fighting monsters, now reappearing to face Rosanna, who sat below. She remained seated, looking directly into Tae-soo's eyes with disdain. She lightly flicked the ring on her finger. Immediately afterwards, all of Tae-soo's clones transformed into fireworks, exploding and emitting brilliant light. Like a grand fireworks display, Rosanna, remaining seated without moving, defeated them all in an instant, truly astonishing. The fireworks continued to shoot into the sky, creating cheerful explosions. Rosanna remained unscathed. Seated regally, Tae-soo tried everything but couldn't kill her. He knelt on the ground. Not stopping there, Rosanna created a spatial portal in the sky, seated on her throne, like a noblewoman ruling over all. She watched as Tae-soo knelt helplessly. The portal grew, sucking in all the remaining debris from the battle, and Tae-soo. He was drawn closer to the portal. Tae-soo looked down at her, unable to resist. At another time, in a playground, a voice called out, "Yeju, you've killed someone again." It turned out Tae-soo and Yeju were talking. Tae-soo sat before a slide, telling his sister, "Killing is wrong." Then, sliding down, he yelled, "I don't want to kill anyone." Yeju, above, looked down and said, "Tae-soo." He continued to shout, "I don't want to kill anyone." Tae-soo cried and shouted louder, "I don't want to kill anyone." Returning to reality, it was no longer a slide but the spatial portal sucking him in. He cried and screamed, "I don't want to die." Falling into the portal, Tae-soo lost all consciousness. Only inner voices argued, "I don't want to die." Tae-soo's mind was at war with itself. The clones continued to fight. And Tae-soo's evil persona won. Emerging from the void, he appeared before Rosanna. Tae-soo used his abilities to create a sharp diamond knife, raising his hand and saying with a sinister smile, "Die." In another space, Stephen Lucas put Ji-hyun down on a building and flew up, saying, "Ji-hyun, your destiny awaits." A heavy burden. Ji-hyun returned to a normal state, sitting atop the building, gazing upwards. Stephen Lucas just flew up high, looked down at him and continued to say that he would have to endure pain and suffering. Stephen Lucas turned his eyes straight to him and emphasized even more how terrible and cruel this was. Stephen Lucas was gradually fading. Tears still streamed down the old man's cheeks. Stephen Lucas raised his hands, grasped his sword, and prayed, "But you must hold on to your faith." Having said that, Stephen Lucas completely vanished in mid-air. He looked up. Kang Ji-hyun, disappointed, bowed his head in thought. He thought for a while, tears welling up in his eyes. Ji-hyun choked out, "Lucas. Hey," he cried out in helplessness and lament, "what the hell are you saying?" Kang Ji-hyun stood up and shouted, "Terrible, what cruelty is this?" He looked up at the sky, spread his arms wide, and arched his body, saying, "My body is back to normal, I can go see my mother." Just as he uttered those words of happiness about seeing his mother, a man suddenly jumped down from the sky. He had a large, muscular build. He carried a long dao. He landed right on Kang Ji-hyun, crushing him. Blood splattered everywhere. The man who had just jumped down, seeing that he had landed on something, curiously bent down. Seeing a pool of blood, he exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" Rosanna, unable to defend herself in time, widened her eyes in panic. This was a trigger, reminding her of her own painful past. Years ago, when monsters from a barrier invaded Russia, the president was utterly terrified. The horrifying event unfolded one twilight evening in the Russian president's office. The frail and decrepit Russian president lay on the office floor. He couldn't think of a solution, only crawling and lamenting, "A monster that won't die even when attacked with nuclear weapons, the world is doomed." At that moment, a familiar voice sounded from outside the door, "Mr. President, a visitor." It was none other than Rosanna, the Russian Minister of Defense. She had found the monster's weakness and reported it to the Supreme Leader. Only magic can kill them. She then proposed a solution to save Russia. "We need to gather the awakened." But the drunken, debauched man no longer cared about such things, having committed an incredibly foolish act without considering the consequences. "It's too late," he said, I've launched all remaining nuclear weapons worldwide." Hearing her father say this, Rosanna was incredibly surprised. She received a massive shock and asked again to be sure, hoping it was a joke. "What did you say?" But there were no jokes. He had truly launched all heavy nuclear weapons worldwide in a fit of madness. He looked up at the falling weapons of destruction and laughed maniacally. "Let's die together." Knowing the situation was dire, Rosanna didn't know what to say. As the Minister of Defense, she had to save her beloved Russia herself. Ignoring her wretched old father, Rosanna soared into the sky at breakneck speed to stop the impending nuclear explosions. She silently cursed the Russian leader. She flew high, reaching the level of the falling nuclear weapons. In the vast expanse of space, horrifying destructive forces threatened human life. To prevent the worst from happening, Rosanna began to summon her magic. Screaming in pain, she used her powerful right hand to control the distant nuclear weapons. From her hand, a giant blue hand appeared in space, creating an immense pull that gathered all the heavy nuclear weapons threatening to annihilate humanity. After gripping the numerous nuclear weapons in the giant hand, the explosions occurred within it. However, they were only visible in the vast sky and caused no harm to the earth below. Looking up at the sky to enjoy the last moments of his life, the president saw this horrifying spectacle and was utterly stunned. In his madness, he continuously cried for help, yet he was the one who had created this great catastrophe. From behind, Rosanna returned after completing a seemingly impossible task. She landed on the floor, leaving large cracks and a gust of wind in her wake. In his office, there was a large portrait of him, looking imposing and majestic, but the current leader was completely different from that image. He was curled up, clutching his head and crying, "Save me." Rosanna was helpless before this sight. She approached her father's body. Her whole body trembled. She didn't want to do what she was about to do, but to avoid the worst possible outcome, she had to act. Before doing so, she uttered words of remorse. "I'm sorry, Mr. President." Tears rolled down her beautiful pink eyes. She was in immense pain, agonizing over her actions and blaming him. She looked away, unable to bear the sight. It turned out she was looking at the president's family photo, showing 5 people joyfully welcoming 2 new members. One of those children was Rosanna. Before acting, she paid her respects one last time. "Father." And so it happened, she executed the madman, even though he was her father, because the fate of her nation came first. Bright red blood splattered, staining the happy family photo. His blood also splattered on his grand portrait, the once dignified face dedicated to his country. Now, even his body was gone. Standing before the large portrait, Rosanna gazed at her father's proud face. Suddenly, from behind her, a large screen opened and a threatening voice rang out, confirming that Russia had launched nuclear weapons indiscriminately. On the big screen, that was the image of the American president. Even though all the nuclear weapons had been eliminated and had no effect on this earth, he still used this excuse to destroy his top rival, Russia. He seriously announced that for world peace, the United States would destroy Russia. Immediately upon hearing this sentence, Rosanna was extremely frightened. It was clear that she had looking at her face. She used all her strength to save the world but could not exchange peace for Russia. She turned around with a worried look. Looking at the large screen, despite half her face being destroyed and blood still covering her, she only cared about Russia. "I'll look for a way to survive for my country," she said. "I am Rosanna, the Russian Minister of Defense. The president is dead. We surrender." She had seemingly given up all honor, even killing her own father. But would her beloved country find peace? Of course not. The despicable American president raised his middle finger on the large screen. Knowing her pleas were futile, she cursed powerlessly, "Damn it." At that moment, 2 children's voices came from outside the large door. "Mom." This loving sound helped Rosanna regain some composure. She turned and said gently, "My children, I told you not to come here because it's dangerous." But it turned out that her 2 infant children from the family photo had entered. The 2 babies ran to hug Rosanna, calling out "Mom" affectionately. They ignored the bloody scene and showed no fear of their mother's disfigured face. The mother-child bond was truly sacred. Comforted by her 2 children, she felt some of her sorrow fade. She affectionately called their names, Medov and Elisa. Her 2 children, clinging to her clothes, had tears in their eyes and rosy cheeks from worry. Seeing this heartwarming sight, she affirmed to her 2 little ones, "Mom will protect you." The large nuclear explosion had shattered the building's windows. The troublemaker was gone, leaving behind a mess for those left behind to struggle with in sorrow. Rosanna helplessly knelt before her children, spreading her arms wide to embrace them, pledging her life, no matter the cost. With them as her mental support, she had reason to fight against those who invaded her country and threatened her children. In the fight against Tae-soo, it was the only stimulant for her strength. Yes, I promised you, I'll put all my strength into this attack. She wanted to quickly defeat the invader and return to her children. In her awakened state, she boasted to her opponent, "Do you think you can beat me? This is a struggle of people with miserable fates," but unfortunately, her circumstances paled in comparison to his mental anguish. She had made a grave mistake, his fighting ability was far beyond her control. Her two-colored eyes stared in astonishment at the direction of Tae-soo's crystal attack. There was no time to dodge it. Rosanna's eyes became lifeless, losing all consciousness as something pierced her head. The red glow of Tae-soo's cruelty enveloped the strong mother. Would maternal love save her from this nightmare? The answer from the heavens was no. The sharp red crystals Tae-soo had created pierced Rosanna's body. Her head was severed, resting on her body. Her crippled leg was also exposed, perhaps the reason she hadn't left her queen's throne for so many years. Even in death, Rosanna maintained the imposing presence of a ruler on her throne. The long, sharp crystals, connected by strings to Tae-soo's body, had defeated their target. He calmly put his hands in his pockets and strolled away. The scene shifts to a small town in Russia, a heavily guarded area. The residents of Russia's awakened. And the queen's two little beloved children were also hiding here. The boy Medov was worried about the current situation and immediately asked the person opposite, the hunters who had come to America, would they be okay? In the small house in the city, there were 3 people residing here, including Elisa, Medov and an old nanny. Hearing the boy's question, the nanny just brought water and answered with a matter-of-fact look to comfort his spirit. Of course, they would win and return home. The children didn't agree. They wanted to defend their beloved country with their mother. They both declared, "We're awakened too." They acted like they could fight. Despite their young age, they showed the determination of adults, confidently telling the nanny, "We can fight." The nanny gently replied, "Medov, Elisa, don't worry." It was clear that their thoughts were immature and naive. 2 children on a battlefield would be instantly killed. She had great faith in Queen Rosanna. The queen will protect. She hadn't finished her sentence when 2 people standing next to Elisa were pulverized. Before this bloody scene, the girl stood frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The small, beautiful city, once heavily protected, had lost its defenses because the awakened had gone to fight in America. Now, it was utterly destroyed, with only rubble remaining. In the midst of the destruction stood the figure of the brutal Tae-soo. He had carved 8 large paths of destruction through the small town. The strings of power filled with his personality spread everywhere through each house. It also passed through the small body of the little girl Elisa standing in front of this scene. She was as absent-minded as a statue, attentively observing. Finally, Tae-soo moved closer to the girl, following the streaks of color. In a moment, she lost her mother. Would she now follow her entire family in death and be reunited with them? Would that be too cruel for the little girl? Looking at the huge, horrifying man reeking of blood before her, the little girl was terrified, staring without daring to blink, her eyes clearly showing fear. Tae-soo began emitting more streaks of color from his body, creating strands one by one, enveloping the girl's body. He stood there silently for a while, still not making a move. Yet, he didn't attack her. Could his kind personality have won? Originally, he was a good person, but his cruel father had driven him mad. That father was none other than the bully who had tormented Jihyung, leaving her with only one life. He turned and walked away, leisurely stepping further from the girl and gradually moving into the fog. Elisa remained motionless like a stone statue, not daring to make a sound or move. Tae-soo's figure faded into the fog. The girl remained silent, fearing that any sound would endanger her life. This time, Elisa would be the only survivor in the Prime Minister's extended family. Suddenly, Jihyung's figure appeared. He was regenerating his body, but with a look of resentment. Considering this scene, the brutal Tae-soo, having walked away, began to change. He began to be controlled by his personalities, unable to overcome the evil within him. Tae-soo cried out in pain and then struck a blow upon Elisa's small, weak body. Cut to Jihyung's current battle. The man in red thought he had defeated him, but then noticed something wrong. What was this? Under his feet, the pools of viscous blood he had just stepped in were merging, regenerating a new body. Though weak, this body had red thread solidifying, greatly accelerating its regeneration. In a few seconds, Ji-hyung's body was completely regenerated. The man in red, without a care, kicked him, sending him plummeting from the rooftop. As he fell, his hand remained gripping the railing, puzzling his opponent. Could this guy not be completely killed? His body shattered upon impact, but his ability allowed it to regenerate. Gripping the railing, he cried out, "Mom!" Was he about to see his mother, only for fate to intervene, preventing their reunion? Before he could fully regenerate, he was hit by the man's spiked mace, shattering his body. Even Ji-hyung's eye was blown away, blood splattered everywhere, and again he cried out, "Mom!" Not giving up his last chance, Ji-hyung, who desperately wanted to see his mother, struggled to crawl forward, his body repeatedly disintegrating and regenerating. The pain from his fractured bones was excruciating, yet he crawled, knowing he couldn't return to his mother without defeating his opponent. Ji-hyung held firm belief, his opponent saw it as a game. Again, he was struck, his skull shattering, sending pieces of flesh flying. His opponent exclaimed, "Interesting, every time he's hit to the point of destruction, he returns to his original form." In the haze of blood, Ji-hyung unconsciously cried out in despair. Ji-hyung's screams were like a death knell. His opponent saw it as a strange musical piece, a never-ending melody. But the death knell was strange, not a perfect masterpiece, but more like the incessant chirping of cicadas. Each time Ji-hyung recovered, he could only utter one word, "Mom." Perhaps those cries were a manifestation of his longing for his only relative. The man above, wielding his spiked mace, mocked Ji-hyung. "Why does such a big guy keep yelling 'Mom'?" After a moment without being hit, Ji-hyung's body was somewhat complete. He lifted his red eyes and cursed at his opponent. Turning to face his mocking opponent, Ji-hyung, whose body was still regenerating with exposed nerves, retorted, "You don't have a mother, you bastard." Though his words were forceful, his helplessness and suffering were evident. His opponent was speechless, not understanding the meaning of his words. Without hesitation, he kicked Ji-hyung into a red magical circle. In an instant, Ji-hyung's newly regenerated body was sucked into the gateway. Was his opponent showing mercy, or was it something far more terrifying, as Lucas's prediction suggested? Ji-hyung's mother had awakened from her coma. She lay in bed, gaunt, lifeless, her lips pale. Suddenly, she slowly opened her eyes, red and filled with pain. Awakening from a deep coma left her slightly disoriented. A voice said, "You're awake." Jaein, supported by her secretary, approached Ji-hyung's mother's bedside. Seeing them, she sat up, worriedly asking, "Where am I?" The Hunters Guild girl introduced herself. The mother's head throbbed. Images flashed through her mind. The Korean Hunters Guild was split in two. The top of the building was intact, the bottom was about to collapse. A hurried voice said, "First, let's move to safety." Jaein and her secretary led Ji-hyung's mother through a place filled with pipes, like a large sewer. Jaein said, "I'll take you to the shelter in the annex." The mother, clutching her wounds, followed, her face filled with worry. Suddenly, something fell from above, blocking Ji-hyung's mother's path. The sound of the impact, along with the dust cloud, made them stop abruptly. Jaein turned to look at the object that had fallen in the dust cloud. She saw a skeleton crushed under large rocks, all lying in a pool of blood-mixed water. But the skull remained, half a face visible enough to identify the person. The mother's terrified expression, and her gaze toward Jaein, confirmed her fears. Then, her voice filled with pain and despair, "My son." Ji-hyung's mother's scream echoed through the room, her terrified expression bordered on madness, sweat streamed down her face. In the empty room, Jaein approached. "You're awake, this is the annex shelter." Ji-hyung's mother trembled, clutching her blanket. She kept repeating, "No, that's impossible." Clutching her head, she cried out in despair, "That's not my son." She struggled to look at the screen Jaein showed her. Jaein coldly crushed her hope, "That is your son." The screen showed Ji-hyung's image. Jaein announced, "Ji-hyung, 23 years old, has fallen into a blood hell." The mother, disbelieving, clutched her head. Jaein pulled her hand, trying to calm her. He stopped the blood hell's outbreak and fought alongside hunters worldwide. Despite the mother's suffering, Jaein showed no sympathy. She coldly whispered, "He did that to save you." Ji-hyung's mother's pained gaze fell on the screen, on the image of her son, who, in his last moments, called out for her. Cut to a spatial rift. Upon opening his eyes, Ji-hyung's body had reverted to his childhood form. His face was dazed, he didn't understand what had happened. Ji-hyun sat up in a familiar room. This is my house. He was still doubtful, could I have gone back in time? He quickly jumped up, ran out of the room, and rushed to the kitchen, repeatedly calling, "Mom, Mom." Seeing the familiar figure he longed for, his emotions surged, "Mom, you're back." Before he could finish, his mother turned around, but unlike his expectations, the woman revealed half a demonic face, her dark eyes fixed on him, a sinister smile playing on her lips. In the black spatial rift, violent red lightning crackled, a hand reached out. Ji-hyun, his body sinewy and tense, struggled to escape the spatial rift. His cries of pain were agonizing, piercing the heart. Tiny spots of light flickered in his eyes. The scene changed to when Ji-hyun was young, his eyes looking worriedly at his mother. "Mom, are you okay?" Looking at the mother's face in front of me, still beautiful and gentle, wiping away tears and smiling, "Mom is okay." In the kitchen, the silhouettes of mother and son converse. Ji-hyun stutters, "But it's because of me that Dad." His mother's voice is sweet, "Cheer up, honey." A strained smile appears on his mother's face, glistening with sweat. His mother's warm voice echoes in Ji-hyun's pain, "Smile, everything will be all right." A painful, rattling cough follows. He grits his teeth, enduring the relentless groans. The groans gradually transform into giggles, "Hi hi 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 hi." The laughter becomes more and more savage. The laughter grows louder than Ji-hyun's body, which begins to transform amidst the chaos and laughter. Ji-hyun transforms within a spatial void, sounds emanate from the void, continuously and clearly, causing the man in red to pause and think. Ji-hyun appears like a rocket, impacting the man in red's buttocks and sending him flying without a wasted motion. Strange cries continue. In Song Di-hong's mind, he wonders, did I just become an idiot? Ji-hyun's enormous transformed body crushes the man in red, immobilizing him. But then he jumps off the man in red. "I have to see my mother." Suddenly, Ji-hyun turns, his transformed face close to the man in red's. "Why? Why did you do that to me? You dog!" Rage and resentment consume him. Ji-hyun attempts to attack, but the man in red quickly leaps back. Without giving him a chance to rest, Ji-hyun lunges at the man in red, a deep-seated desire to tear the vile body apart. The man in red doesn't flinch, rising to a fighting stance to counterattack. In China, within a grand and magnificent tower, a voice rings out, "That monster, it's on a whole different level." Even America was defeated by it. A subordinate respectfully kneels to report, "Can we win against it?" A woman's voice asks, disdain evident in her authoritative tone. Her body reclines comfortably amidst monstrous human figures. This powerful woman is none other than China's SSS-ranked hunter No. 2, Ling Zhuwei. Something is dropped from above, accompanied by a scream. A figure is dropped from above. This person lands safely with a razor-sharp blade. China swiftly resolved the dungeon crisis with its overwhelming hunter force. The hunters transcend national control. Representatives of the Hunter Association appear. Shaolin Temple's S-rank Tanhuaji. Shaman sect's SS-rank Pei Yuzchen. Jimei sect's SS-rank Xiaoyu. Kai Bang's SS-rank Zhang Shuan. Mount Hua sect's SSS-rank Xiaomin. Hunters, both major and minor, appear everywhere, ushering in a new era. However, they are all killed. Corpses litter the ground, surrounded by pools of blood. These high-ranking hunters were killed by only two people, siblings. The brother kills them, and the sister revives them as puppets, coordinating seamlessly. Ling Zhuwei turns to her brother, "Still killing, brother, you think we'll unify China this way?" He replies simply, "Yes." His sister sighs, "You're insane." They seem to have turned everyone in the area into puppets. They line the puppets up, and China is unified, thanks to China's #1 hunter, Ling Zhuwei's brother, who continues to swing his blade. While fighting, he says, "I heard there's a strong person here, so I came to see." Interesting, his handsome face and six-pack abs are revealed, undeniably attractive. Wang Guang also possesses SSS-class strength. Suddenly, he swears, his blade shatters, and one of Wang Guang's hands is severed, flying with the blade fragments. It was Ji-hyun who attacked, decapitating Ling Zhuwei. He leaves a final sarcastic remark, "Interesting." Ling Zhuwei's scythe cleaves Ji-hyun's flesh, severing a limb. Ji-hyun growls, "Interesting." Wang Guang leaps from behind, slashing Ji-hyun repeatedly. The building behind him is scarred by the attacks. Then it explodes into fragments. Guang smiles arrogantly, this is too interesting. Jihyung appears behind him, his voice hoarse, I feel the same way. He stabbed straight into his back, the pressure from the energy causing everything around him to explode. Guang blocked his arm, why have you become like this? I heard there's a powerful monster, that's why I came here. As he spoke, he kicked toward Jihyung, he swung his arm to counter, but Guang dodged, he calmly continued the conversation. But you're human. What should we do now? Guang turned to Jihyung and whispered, your power is truly like a monster's, but before he could finish, he turned to face his enemy. He quickly distanced himself from Jihyung. Another earth-shattering blow. Guang licked the blood from his lip and smiled faintly. He pointed his weapon at his back and said, monsters only kill, they don't fight to protect anyone, look over there, what's that? Behind him was a collapsed building. Jihyung was stabbed in the eye, blood gushing out, yet he smiled eerily, there's a mother who abandoned me and ran away. Anyway, I still love her. Guang smiled, that's a sad story, isn't it? He continued, when I was a child. He reminisced about the past. He bluntly stated, there's nothing alike. He pointed upwards and loudly proclaimed, a man must dream of becoming the strongest. Face your enemy and fight to the end, if you're so strong, then fight and defeat me. Guang shouted for battle, but Jihyung's arm lunged forward, crushing one eye of the weapon, causing it to panic. Guang ignored it, continuously swinging his scythe close to him, the scythe cried out in pain. He became even more excited, what a thrill, Jihyung punched, breaking his weapon, I feel that too, the weapon snapped in two with a terrible cry. He unleashed a deadly blow, aiming straight at the weapon, causing it to scream in pain, save me. He showed no mercy, smashing its head. Guang continuously drew more weapons. Jihyung looked down, opening his palm, it was an eye still bleeding. That's the ego sword. It was forged from the corpse of a hunter. So that's how it is. Having said that, Jihyung lunged forward, Guang immediately threw a knife. Jihyung's head separated from his body, but he quickly caught it, reattached it, and punched Guang in the head. The blow sent him crashing into the wall behind. Gal Yakbong, an S-class blacksmith, approached, calling out, Sir Guang. He wiped his mouth and looked at the old man, it's you. Behind him was a small mountain of corpses piled on top of each other. He calmly asked, have you collected all the hunters' bodies? The old man slowly replied, about 40, sir. Guang charged back into battle, not forgetting to entrust the old man, I'll leave it to you. Gal Yakbong's hand suddenly transformed into a large hammer, raised high, I understand. He struck the hammer, causing the corpses to merge into one. Wails echoed around Jihyung. Save me, mother, it hurts, save me. Jihyung just stood there watching, saying nothing. Finally, Gal Yakbong, sweat dripping, said, though I created it from this suffering. This is truly a masterpiece. Before them was a giant spiky sphere formed from countless bodies, still emitting cries for help. Yakbong presented a weapon handle to Guang. He took the rope, not forgetting to reply, thank you. Jihyung watched the mountain of corpses charging towards him. He was flung back by it, the cries of the tormented souls relentlessly tortured his ears. Jihyung hugged the ball of meat tightly but it still kept screaming. With an open head and mouth screaming mommy. His hand clenched another mass of flesh as it shrieked, daughter. Jihyung laughed savagely, pressing them into a single mass, a reunited family. Guang continuously threw the ball of flesh towards him. Those miserable people cried out, kill us, and he hugged it tightly. He pressed close to the ball, his eyes narrowed in mockery, the wretched souls who perished by the monster, they're all gathered here. He recalled, I killed quite a few of the living ones in this group, not to mention those already dead. Guang unceremoniously flung the mass of flesh far away. Jihyung smiled cruelly, tearing the bloody ball of flesh apart, scattering it everywhere, too easy, he uttered. Jihyung's face contorted, Guang immediately pointed his sword at him, I bought an eye in South Korea last year to record everything we fight. The power of this ego sword. In his mind, Jihyung remembered his friend who had lost an eye. He recalled the scene where he himself had killed him. Guang slowly said, this is the owner of that eye. The bizarre sword opened its mouth and spoke. Jihyung. His memories flowed into Guang's consciousness. He growled, "You ran before even fighting." He turned his back in disappointment, this cowardly fool. His back receded into the distance, die. Ji-hyun was immediately cut into hundreds of pieces. In Ji-hyun's subconscious, he sat hugging his face until a familiar voice rang out. "Ji-hyun," the voice said. He peered through the gap in his hands, unable to answer. When he saw who it was, he screamed in terror. He sat down and placed a comforting hand on him. "It's all right, we're friends." But suddenly, his tone changed. "Why did you do that to me? I helped you." Now only ahead, he glared hatefully at Ji-hyun. His accusing voice echoed, "Why did you kill me? We were friends." Ji-hyun hugged his face, screaming in agony amid the accusations, "It hurts, my eyes, it's all your fault." He forced a strained smile. Ji-hyun shouted as if comforting himself, "Smile, come on." He used his own hands to tear his face apart while laughing maniacally. He chopped off his own head, only for it to reattach itself. The more he chopped, the more heads grew back. This cycle continued endlessly. Guang turned back to see Ji-hyun giving a miserable smile. Behind him were heads with grotesque smiles. "Who wants to kill me first?" In China. A girl submerged in a pool of blood looked up, wondering, "Brother must be having fun fighting monsters, huh?" She was China's #2 hunter, Ling Zhuwei. She calmly replied, "What?" The armor knelt down to report respectfully. "The northern hunters." Confused, she asked, "Hunters?" He frantically reported their being slaughtered. She murmured to herself as she saw the scene before her. In northeast China, Heilongjiang province. Tae-soo and Yeju stood atop a cliff. He used his power to destroy a vast area, calmly remarking, "Feels good, doesn't it?" He began to lose control, tilting his head repeatedly. Multicolored threads flew everywhere. Yeju cried out, "Tae-soo." She hugged him as he roared in helplessness. She softly said, "Actually, I'm at fault." Tae-soo interrupted, "No." He recalled asking Ji-hyun in school, "What's your ability?" Ji-hyun hesitantly answered, "My ability is." He revealed his scaly forearms, bone armor. Then immediately knocked him down. He frowned and waved his hand in disgust. He turned away, annoyed, and told him to go away, but a laugh rang out. Ji-hyun chuckled nervously, scratching his head. "I bet you found that disgusting," he thought. "Sorry, I didn't expect that to irritate Tae-soo," he thought. "That bastard started this war." Back to the bloody battlefield. Ji-hyun's face now wore a grotesque smile. Guang looked at him with interest. He stood before him. "Dad, you're asking if I'm the one who killed you." He jumped up and repeatedly kicked him in the face. He unleashed an attack, severing all of Ji-hyun's limbs. Without giving him a chance to react, he drew another weapon and repeatedly hacked at his body. Only one eye remained. He then used the hilt of the blade to smash it. The light from the lamp made everything strangely cohesive. Ji-hyun rose from the wreckage. He immediately lunged forward, hacking at his body. His body fell backward, helpless, onto his own remains. Guang raised his blade high, and plunged it into his eye. His face was mangled, but Ji-hyun still offered a grotesque smile. Despite Guang directly hacking half of Ji-hyun's face away. Before he could gloat, a blade flew towards Guang. His body shattered, emitting dazzling rays of light. He was reborn from the shredded remains. The city was now enveloped in blood. Guang charged from the building, knocking Ji-hyun away. He continuously threw knives at him. They were both sent flying into the sea of blood. He immediately drew his sword and pierced him. Ji-hyun sank to the bottom of the sea. He slowly sank deeper. Ji-hyun opened his mouth wide. His eyes widened, remembering his mother's strained face. "Smile, son," she had said, "damn it." He pursed his lips, then burst into a self-mocking laugh. His laughter grew more savage. His face contorted to match. Dugong hung suspended in the air. Bloody gates connected to the seabed. He looked down at the sea, where a powerful whirlpool emerged from below. He looked at him, smiling wickedly. He looked at him with amusement. A moment later, his face was cleaved in two. He grabbed both halves of his head. Guang's face foamed with green bubbles, connected to his flesh. He glared at him fiercely and lunged. A hand reached out, grabbing his eye. He kicked Ji-hyun to pieces. Ji-hyun reappeared before him. The two lunged into battle. He continuously threw spears to push Ji-hyun away. The spears were thrown together and gathered at one point. Jihyung's body was propelled into space, pierced by hundreds of spears. His head fell to earth. The pressure turned it into a fireball. His face was scorched by the intense flames, burning to bone. Wang Guang watched the scene and smiled. His eyes widened in awe. He stood on the rooftop, watching it plummet like a meteor. What a magnificent sight! Then, unexpectedly, Jihyung appeared in the flames, charging towards him. Some time later, Tae-soo lay on the ground, his face impaled by a spear. Zhu Wei, sucking on a candy, asked, "Is that you?" Thousands of empty armors stood in rows behind her, respectfully, as she sat upon the one who had killed her children. Tae-soo and Yeju were subdued and lay flat on the ground. Zhu Wei glanced at Tae-soo suspiciously. "Just you?" Behind her were millions of hunter spirits, arrogant, she dared to challenge the 100 million hunters here. Tae-soo triggered an explosion and fled with Yeju. She panicked, asking, "Tae-soo, those spirits are chasing us, I don't understand. Why are we doing this?" she asked. He calmly replied, "I can't give up, I have to kill that bastard, Kang Jihyung." Flashback, he sat with two classmates. One said, "There are so many hunters in this world, aren't there? They're still fighting now, but it won't last, they'll all come to South Korea. Tae-soo, if we die in battle someday," he looked up at the cherry blossom tree thoughtfully, "then absorb all our power." Tae-soo was confused. "What?" Tae-soo protested, "How can I do that?" His friend replied, "Even if we die, we'll live on inside you forever. We're friends, right?" He hesitated. "Yeah, I know." Tae-soo hugged his two friends cheerfully. "Let's survive to the end," he muttered. Tae-soo held Yeju's shoulder tightly, pushing through the rain of purple liquid. He couldn't keep his promise to them. She looked at him intently. "Tae-soo," her eyes were filled with panic, "what nonsense are you talking about?" In the flashback, Tae-soo was not present. His friend said to the person beside him, "There are so many hunters in this world, aren't there? They're still fighting now, but it won't last, they'll all come to South Korea." Tae-soo lay on the cherry blossom tree, sarcastically saying, "Then you'll all die." He looked up, noticing him. Annoyed, he said, "Tae-soo." Tae-soo climbed down. "What the hell are you saying?" He glared. "Got a problem?" The other boy turned, terrified. They stopped before the cave entrance. Tae-soo gritted his teeth. "I have to avenge my friends." Yeju watched his figure disappear into the distance. She thought to herself, "Tae-soo, what happened? What happened?" He faced millions of hunter spirits alone. Ling Zhuwei looked at him arrogantly. Ling Zhuwei, a Class 2 Chinese hunter, possessed the ability to resurrect and enslave awakened beings. With that powerful ability, she resurrected all the Chinese hunters. And she was the embodiment of China's power. The spirits continuously charged towards Tae-soo. Her eyes widened as red ice shards flew towards her. But she sensed something unusual. Tae-soo had created millions of clones, continuously attacking the spirits. The spirits' limbs were severed and scattered everywhere. This guy far surpassed SSS class strength. No, his power didn't stop there. His power transcended human limits. Tae-soo, like a god, stared intently at his prey. It was terrifying. He seemed certain of victory. Facing over 1,000,000 spirits was nothing. The overwhelming power of Tae-soo caused the spirits to halt. Furthermore, although these puppets had their consciousness completely erased, they fled, their survival instincts still present. Ling Zhuwei angrily released his ability and commanded me to fight to the death. The spirit bones stopped and listened to her command, moving forward with me supporting them. Something that can erase their fear. Zhuwei roared, "Even if you die countless times, I will resurrect you." They obeyed. Turning to charge at Tae-soo, she powerfully yelled, "Advance and fight, hope." However, Tae-soo was strong, and he slaughtered them all. He raged, veins bulging on his face, "Die." His family portrait was overlaid with scribbles. More and more people appeared in the painting. He fell into a space where those people connected to him, causing him excruciating headaches. Ling Zhuwei bit hard on her candy. "I am the embodiment of China's strength." She angrily and seriously unleashed her power. "You think I'll lose to someone like you?" Little Tae-soo appeared, using his power to decapitate her. "I understand now." Zhuwei's head separated from her neck. She remembered a magnificent palace. A voice spoke, "This is Manhwa sect territory. He's an SSS class member of Manhwa sect." Xiaomin. He pointed his sword at her mother, growling, "Why dare you approach?" She cursed, "You bastards." She cried out, "This is where our family has lived for generations." Before she could finish, Xiaomin decapitated her. The two siblings hid behind a wall, watching their mother's head roll. "Let's move to the next location." Zhu Wei covered her mouth, trying to stifle her cries. Terrified, she sobbed silently. Wang Guang, behind her, asked, "Why are you crying?" He looked outside intently. "Father and mother, they died because they were weak." She glanced at him frantically. "Brother, aren't you sad?" He took a candy from his mouth and gave it to his sister calmly. "Why should I be sad? I'll become stronger, then I'll kill them all." They sat calmly in the wall crevice, watching their mother's head. Her tears flowed. "Brother, I'm also weak." "That's why it happened," Tae-Soo interjected sarcastically. "That's exactly it." He took Ling Zhuwei's candy and opened his mouth wide. Back to Jihyung's battle, his body flew into space, impaled by hundreds of spears. His head fell to earth. The pressure turned it into a fireball. His face was burned to bone by the intense flames. Wang Guang smiled at the scene. His eyes widened in wonder. He stood on the rooftop, watching it fall like a meteor. "What a magnificent sight," he exclaimed. Jihyung suddenly appeared in the flames, charging towards him. Jihyung grabbed his neck and smashed him against the wall. The wall shattered. He opened a blood gate. Wang Guang panicked. What? He was shoved into a space. He grinned cruelly. "Get lost." Wang Guang was shoved into a space.